Sitting next to you is Chris Crawford. He flew all the way here from the northern region of California. Thank you very much for joining us.
Upstate California.
Upstate California. Your arms are pretty tired from flying in here, huh?
Yes.
You're here to talk about Justice Served and its mission, and you've kind of been here for a couple of days at a convention. Why don't you first talk to us about Justice Served, what it is, how long it's been going on, just the 411 on that.
Well, Justice Served is a court management consulting firm, and it's a very narrow market niche. I guess in the old days they would have called it an efficiency expert. Who do you hire to come in to make the train run on time? And essentially, I did this on the public sector side for about 21 years or so in Los Angeles and in the Southern California area, and was a court administrator of a number of different courts, including Beverly Hills, Catalina, Beach Cities, Los Angeles. And I was always a private industry person trapped in a public industry body.
That's tough, I know.
And especially on the technology side, the courts didn't tend to use technology as effectively as they could. Yeah. So my market niche is to go in and help move that stuff along.
I mean, culturally, lawyers and the law in general is not very forward-leaning when it comes to technology. So, I mean, that's sort of
the organization itself is not really conducive to change. It's steeped in tradition and a precedent, and it's like the Wizard of Oz. People are dressed in robes and puffs of smoke and fire and things like that.
I'm a recovering attorney. So
but the point is, the people who are trying to interact with the courts to get business done have a difficult time if they're either not represented by an attorney, or they're trying to deal with family law issues, a divorce or custody of kids, but even something routine like a traffic ticket or small claims case. How do they do that effectively? And how do they have access to justice? How do they do this so that it doesn't turn out to be that the process is part of the punishment?
So that's really very egalitarian. You're actually trying to making the legal system work for everyday people.
Well, when they coined the word the People's Court, for the program, they really did touch a niche that there are a number of folks who, through no fault of their own, come into contact with the legal system, and this is a bedrock foundation of our country. Yeah. And it's something we should be proud of. It's what separates us from a lot of other countries, and we should be very businesslike about it. We should use technology effectively, and increasingly that means web presence and delivery of court services on the web.
Well, you're president of Justice Served.
Yes.
How has what you're doing with Justice Served affected all of the courtrooms? I mean, how have you affected technology in courtrooms across America? It's not just Northern California.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of work in the United States, and again, it's as much coming in and helping to make the train run on time, irrespective of technology. A lot of times what you do is try to lift the technology off and then look and then streamline the processes, and then when it makes sense, lay technology on top of it. But where we came up with the top 10 court website awards was that, if you're out there trying to build a really righteous website, where do you go? Where are the models you look to steal shamelessly? And we came up with this 8 years ago, which in internet time is like dog years.
Right. Yeah. Why did you guys decide to do this?
Because websites were just starting to hit the courts, and most of them were doing a pretty poor job of it.
Right.
They tended to be shiny brochures and gave directions to the court, maybe a telephone number or something like that. And the whole promise of web presence is to actually cut down on the need to visit the courthouse, to be able to transact business in your underpants at home on a Sunday. That's what we're supposed to be doing, so that you have access to your justice system and be able to deal with these matters effectively without having to go through the travails.
Actually, you can pay your parking ticket online. I mean, that's everything you want to happen. Yeah. We don't have much time left, but tell us about how you guys picked, because about your 10 websites you picked, how many entrants you had, where were they from, and then kind of the qualification factors.
As you can imagine, 8 years ago when we did this, we had to slog through like 100 websites for the first year, and for the second year it was like 150, and we've gotten to the point now where first of all, we rate every website we can find. It's not just in the United States, it's around the world. And we looked in 2007 at 4,000 websites.
In 2007?
This year, we looked at 4,000 websites to pick the best of breed. And the competition is really stiff. You have to, for instance, the number one winner was Singapore, the subordinate courts in Singapore. Singapore is ISO 9000 rated for quality.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's the only court in the world that has that kind of rating. And you can tell by their technology applications how incredibly advanced that they are.
But it's Singapore.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so that's
when
what...
you're an autocratic city-state, you can do a lot of things.
Right.
So,
Well, yes, when they can beat you for chewing gum.
Well, I hear they've tried to knock that off, but...
Well, tell us what your criteria and what you chose besides the ISO 9000.
The rating criteria is very easy. Number one, interactivity.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to transact business, and the more business you transact, and the more creative you transact that business, the higher your rating. Then from there, you get into more aesthetic kinds of ratings, and those include ease of navigation. Is your interactive content 4 clicks away from the home page? Is it easy to find? Is it intuitive? Are we barking out Latin terms to people who are
user friendly?
Right, exactly. And we're talking about really seriously. Obviously, a big constituency is the lawyer, but increasingly there are just an awful lot of folks who are self-represented, and they don't have that Latin training.
Chris, can you share with us maybe the top 3 of the top 4 that you guys picked?
Well,
there were
a couple of trends. Yeah. The trends really started happening a couple of years ago, where you're starting to see more streaming video, which is really heads up. But also, you started to see, from my perspective, you go into a lot of these jurisdictions and you have multiple kind of balkanization of the courts. So you have lower courts, upper courts, clerk's office.
Together, right.
And especially in the British courts, you get this the boutique courts, the Lands Tribunal, Labor Tribunal. Increasingly, we're starting to see these portals that these individual jurisdictions may exist in the background, but to the user, they're just going to the court portal and asking simple questions. What is your problem? Do you have a landlord-tenant problem? Do you have a small claims problem? Do you have a traffic ticket?
Right.
And then as you click, you go into those proprietary buckets.
Right.
But to the user, it's transparent.
So then tell us who were real quick before we go to break, which I know we need to go. Tell us who you guys picked. Who were the top maybe 3 or 4?
The Victoria courts in Australia, the Singapore courts, Singapore subordinate courts, Clark County, Nevada, which is Las Vegas, did one of these portals that's really cool.
Anything a little closer to home for our...
well, let's see. Obviously, our own Hillsborough County Circuit
Court.
Clerk's
That's what
office.
I've been wanting to say. So,
and that was developed by a local team.
It was. That's what we wanted to get you to say. I think that's great. And I think for people to acknowledge Tampa Bay worldwide is just another awesome thing. And I know how you feel about the Tampa Bay area. So thank you very much for doing that.
My pleasure.